Okay, well, thank you everyone for joining us tonight. It's 7 o'clock. We're going to start right on time. Good evening. Welcome to Sustainable Claremont's inaugural Green Home Tour. This is a program that's been in the works for nearly 2 years now. It's taken a lot of different turns. Last year, we were hoping to be in person for it. This year, we were hoping to be in person for it. But finally, we're here this evening virtually for it. But we have a really great program lined up for everybody. The Green Home Tour is really meant to be an important sustainability resource for the community, for you, the participants and attendees tonight. As you may know, over the course of the next 4 weeks, we're going to be zeroing in on some really specific elements of sustainability. We're going to be looking at 3 houses and renter homes and a senior community. So we're trying to touch on all the different types of places that people call home. The homeowners and renters that we're going to be talking to, they've spent hours and hours on, researching the upgrades that they've made to their home. And through that process of transforming their homes, they've become experts and they have firsthand experience. And what we want to provide you is the opportunity to learn from them, learn the good, the bad, the mistakes that were made, the things they would have done differently. So this is really meant to be a very interactive type of program. And as Angela keeps pushing me to say, the great Kermit says, it's not easy being green. So we're trying to help you be more green. And tonight we're focusing on homes. Tonight's been made possible by some amazing sponsors, including Southern California Edison, Energy Upgrade California, Lewis Management Group, and Carol Holder and John Malincrot. It's because of their financial support that we were able to offer tonight for free. So we're very grateful for them, and we hope that this is an ongoing program that we can continue into the future. Just a little bit of housekeeping, so what you can expect for the rest of the night. Tonight, we're going to be talking to Peter, who you can see on the screen, about he and his wife's home. We're focusing on solar power, battery storage, and power management systems. We're going to start the night with a brief video tour of the property. And then Hugh Cox, one of our board members, is going to lead a conversation with Peter about the whole process. Again, the aim of tonight is really to provide you all an opportunity to ask questions and learn whatever things you need to learn to help you take that step at home to make these upgrades. So we strongly encourage that you ask questions. You could do that by pressing the little raise hand button on your Zoom. And then Angela and I will as time permits, ask you to unmute yourself and you could ask Peter or Hugh a question. If you prefer to put the question in the chat box, Angela and I can ask Peter or Hugh to answer those questions when time permits. So thank you all again so much for being here tonight, and we're going to get things started. So I'm going to go ahead and start our video tour of Peter's place, and then I'm going to throw it to Hugh and to Peter. So let me go ahead and share my screen here. Okay. Hello. Pardon me. Everyone can see that okay? Can I get a thumbs up or a nod? Okay. All right, here we go. My name is Peter, and I'd like to welcome you to my home, which is almost at net zero. In other words, we're producing the power that we consume, and we use the sun to do that. 8 minutes ago, the photons left the sun, and they're now hitting the solar panels, which are charging the home battery, which are charging the electric car, and providing light, heat, cooling, and all the electrical needs of the house. And we're looking at 47 solar panels. These are Solar World 280 watt solar panels that were installed approximately 5 or 6 years ago. And it's a 13,000 watt system that produces sufficient energy for my house. The use of the power is for both the immediate use of the house and to charge
the Tesla Powerwall 2 batteries so that we have energy in the nighttime hours when the sun isn't shining, and in those days when there is no sunshine or on a cloudy day. So this is part of an attempt to get the house to net zero. The 47 panels cover approximately 22% of the roof. So fully 80% would be available for generation, for donations and contributions to others who may be interested in renewable power. But under current law, Southern California Edison does not permit that, but in the future we hope to convince them that for those of us who want to produce the maximum amount of solar energy, this could be allowed, and then donations made of that excess electricity to schools, nonprofits, museums, and other institutions. It's also the fact that this solar system will be part of a microgrid up here in the Padua Hills. And my neighbors and I are talking about putting together a system whereby individual homes could generate and trade power. And this is something that we believe will be the future of renewable power in the state of California. We really had no problem in adding the solar panels to this house, even though when it was constructed 15 years ago, we did not have solar panels. It's really quite a simple process, and the new solar panels that are being produced in 2021 are less susceptible to being positioned in ideal relationship to the prevailing sunshine. While in the past it was the case that that was a consideration, advances have been made in the collection of solar photovoltaic systems that allow on almost any roof to be a solar collector. So these are all things that will make adopting solar on a broad basis in the future easier and easier. Actually, we will be producing solar panels right here in the Claremont-Pomona area, and it would be interesting to use those panels in the Village South project. And if the buildings are designed from the beginning to produce the power and store the power and manage the power that they might consume, it's really very easily achieved. And this is something that Claremont should seriously consider, I think. We're looking at a Tesla Powerwall 2 home battery that was installed about 3 years ago. It's a 13 kilowatt system and allows this house, it's about 3,200 square feet, to be independent of the grid. I generate up to 80 kilowatt hours per day. Part of that energy is stored every day in this Tesla Powerwall 2 battery. And then when the sun goes down between the hours of 5 or 6 and 9 or 10 at night, this battery powers the entire house. So every day it's charged and discharged. It also is charging this electric car, which is a Tesla Model S. If I run out of stored power in the battery, the controller will automatically switch to grid sources of power to charge the car at the most advantageous hours of the day. So that's basically how I drive using sunshine. And I did not put this battery in at the same time that the 47 280 watt Solar World panels went on the roof. I put those in first and was then several years later interested in adding the capability of storing my own power. And so at night we were using grid supplied power from Southern California Edison. Now we're using stored power at night each day. So there's a daily cycle of generation and charging the battery, and then at night using those electrons to run the television, the heat, the air conditioning, the lights, all of those things. Yeah, this is a vertical axis wind turbine that was developed about 10 years ago by a company called California Energy and Power. And it's silent and basically captures power in these 4 wings that you see here and turns a generator. Very, very simple idea. And this would create about 250 watts of power on a good windy day. And again, it's another source of residential generation that will be available for Californians to take advantage of. The hope is that all residential batteries will be coming down in cost very rapidly, and there's some very exciting new technology that will reduce the price of storage of electricity and make it more and more easily available for all Californians to have stored electric power.
Okay, great. So Hugh, I'm going to throw it to you and to Peter to kick things off.
Great. Thanks, Stuart. And thank you, Peter, for opening up your house and for devoting your time to this program. It was really inspiring to me to be able to visit your house and see the panels and see your management system and see your car and your energy storage system and hear about that, the whole journey that you took towards that. I'm wondering if maybe as a starting point, maybe you could just share kind of how you decided to put in renewable energy systems and kind of what that path was, you know, what sort of research you did and the whole process for selecting it and then ultimately getting it installed.
Sure. Yeah, thank you very much to Sustainable Claremont and all the sponsors that made this possible. I guess I've had an interest in renewable energy for about 25 years, and I've just made it a habit to read and study as much as I can. I don't come from necessarily a technical background, but I was interested enough to try to learn as much as possible. And in my journey, I was able to come across many people who were willing to help, and that made it easier to make sense out of what can be a confusing and complex field. I just want to assure anyone who is interested in renewable power and the potential that it has, that any of us can learn enough to make good decisions. In other words, while it may seem overwhelming to sort out what a kilowatt is from a watt, what a kilowatt hour is, and the jargon associated, I really want to encourage everyone to embark on the journey, because nothing could be more important as far as I believe. The way to begin, I think, is to understand that the sun 93 million miles away is a virtually unlimited nuclear power plant that has so much energy, it is stunning. In fact, if you take all of the energy the world uses today and put it in your hands, there's 10,000 times that amount of energy flowing from the sun every single day. So this idea that we have a deficit in energy is preposterous. And once you fully understand how it is possible to convert the flow of energy coming from the sun to a flow of electrons. So the is something that can be, and in the future, I believe it will be less and less expensive to both generate power from solar sources, store that power, and manage the power. So that's kind of the big three. So the first thing to do is to realize what a stunning source we have at our disposal. And the flow of the energy is something that will continue almost indefinitely. We know it's not forever, but for all intents and purposes, it is. And so the idea of collecting this was intriguing to me, this free source of an amazing amount of energy. And what I personally used in selection of a solar system was Pick My Solar. And this is a company that will look at your home, will evaluate free of charge how much energy you need in order to offset your consumption. So this very simple idea that you look at how much you're consuming and then you design a system that is appropriate. Some people want to get to net zero. Net zero simply means the home is producing the power that it consumes. And net zero is an important concept, but it's no more complex than that. In my case, I definitely wanted to get to net zero, and basically Pick My Solar recommended 47 Solar World panels. And they gave me 3 different options for installation. And so I chose the one that they recommended, and I was very happy with the installation. And the company that actually installed the Solar World panels, it went very smoothly. And previously to putting in the solar panels, my electric bill was approximately $500 per month. We have a large home. We have a profligate grandchildren who use electricity like it was nothing. And so we do consume a lot of power. And right now our electric bill is $3 a month. I mean, it's essentially zero. And so it's been very nice over the last 5 years not to write checks to Southern California Edison. In fact, they have been sending me money because I sell excess power to our utility. Now, they don't pay very much for the kilowatt hours that I send to them. In fact, the last calculation, I think they were paying 3.5 cents a kilowatt hour for the excess power, which they would like to sell me at 17 cents. A nice business model if you can get it, right? But in any event, it's worked very well for me. And I knew that storage, obviously the sun is not shining all the time, and storage of electricity is a difficult thing. So it's also important to understand a little bit about storage. And
you did install storage, correct? But later on?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah. About 3 years after I installed the panels, I knew I wanted storage, and Tesla came out with a residential storage system called the Powerwall 2 storage system. So that then allowed me to get closer and closer to my goal, which was net zero, to 24 hours a day, be able to produce, generate, store, and manage power so that I could meet the needs of my family. And for electric power. So the installation of the Tesla storage system got us closer and closer to that net zero goal.
And how does the storage work? Is it during peak hours if you're not using all the electricity, or kind of how's that mix play out?
Basically, the first thing that happens as the sun is coming up, the battery is essentially depleted. It is cycling every day. So basically, what's happening is that the first thing in the morning, early hours of the morning, is the system will split the generation of the electrons from the 47 panels between recharging the battery and the use of the home. In other words, it'll determine what is being called for by the home. In other words, how many lights are on, how many appliances are being run, and it will meet that need. And then the excess, rather than going back to the grid and being sold back to Edison, it will charge the battery. And in fact, right now, this, I don't know if you can see this, but this is a little controller that is showing the generation. The sun is still out, even though it's waning right now, of course, the sun is going down. But this is a controller that tells you what actually is happening to the electrons. And the solar system is now producing 2 kilowatts, and the home is using those 2 kilowatts. So the battery is being right now from the Powerwall battery. You can see down here at the bottom is the Powerwall battery. Over here is the house, and here is the solar system. So the house right now at this instant is being powered by both the battery and the 47 solar panels. Does that make sense? Yeah.
Yeah, it does.
So it's this, it is a little bit complex, but all of this happens automatically. And typically, I charge the Powerwall 2 battery up to 80% of capacity every day. And then at night, as the sun goes down, greater and greater percentage of the house demand is met by the battery rather than the solar cells directly. So it's all, and in the future, the management will become even more consolidated. So the generation, the consumption, and the management of the power will be on a single dashboard. And there's a company that I happen to be working with called Hubby that is installing these systems in downtown Los Angeles right now. So they're in existence, they're very early stage, but it makes it much easier. And in fact, in the future, the storage system of the car, if you have an electric car, in my case, I do have an electric car that has quite a powerful battery in it, will be able to plug into the house. And so even the management of the power that's stored in the battery of the car, the electric car, will be another residential resource. Does that make sense to everybody? Yeah.
It does. And Peter, the management system that you're talking about for home use is just simply on your computer, correct?
That's correct. It'll be on every device, any device you want. There'll be an app for that, of course. And it will be, right now, the generation of the power from the solar world, solar panels is a separate monitoring system is the best way to understand it. And
we already have a couple of questions in the chat, so maybe we'll dive into those.
Sure.
Carrie says, great info, Peter. do you have an estimated time it took you to get to this point? And I think that was the point where you decided to make the installation.
Yeah. Yeah, it was, I would say, a total of 6 years, something like that, since installation of the solar panels first, and then 3 years ago, the battery. So the battery and the solar panels, approximately 3-year interval. But that is, you know, something that's very much in the control of the homeowner.
And your education process, your self-education process and researching this and all, how long would you say you spent on that?
Well, it's been a slow process in my case. But I would say once you get the basics down, it's not difficult. And I hear that Sustainable Claremont is hopefully going to be working with people that are interested, and there are a lot of resources, quite frankly. And I would be glad to help anyone understand renewable energy. This is what I do. This is what my passion. And so once you kind of get into it, it's kind of addictive in the sense that you start learning more and more about it, and you start, you know, asking questions, and it's a very interesting field. There is this theory that I might share with people that there's one electron in the whole world, and we're all participating. No one's ever seen an electron. Nobody really knows what it is. And that's kind of an interesting concept in itself. And there are some who believe it's best understood as one electron, and we're all in some way related to it, which is a little bit touchy-feely maybe, but it's an interesting concept. And for those of us who believe in solar energy, the universal use and access potential of this thing is quite stunning. And in fact, this new solar panel that's being developed by Devin Hartman and Chirp Solar Works has some fascinating potential for radically reducing the core cost of solar and making it more and more accessible to everyone. And my belief is that eventually what was told to us about nuclear power, that it would be too cheap to meter, if you remember that about nuclear, didn't quite happen. Turns out nuclear is very expensive. But in the future, I can see solar being much, much cheaper than it is. And I know storage and management will be much cheaper than it is today. So,
so there's another question that sort of gets at that cost issue. Patty asks, what is the break-even time for this system to earn back its cost?
Sure. Yeah, in my case, it was about 5 years. So it was a pretty good payback period of time. And it was a $41,000 system, but then I got a 30% tax credit. So it was really $28,000. And I was paying $6,000 a year, really more than that. So it was 5.5 years, something like that, to pay back. And, you know, I probably bought the system when the panels were twice as expensive as they are now. So as a general rule, the prices are coming down. And I'm involved with some battery companies where the core cost of the battery will be coming down. And as I said, solar panel prices have come down dramatically. So the future looks encouraging to me.
Here's actually a good follow-up question to that. It has to do with public policy as well. Can Peter explain how he will be impacted if the solar-related bill is passed in California legislature? They don't know the number, but I know there is a grid fee, which seemed substantial. It seemed there were a number of provisions that would make putting in or using solar very difficult and costly.
Yes, the tug of war between the utilities and rooftop solar is an ongoing story. And just recently, there were bills proposed in the California state legislature to essentially tax people who are putting rooftop solar onto their homes. And the argument of the utilities has often been, well, these are free riders. And my rebuttal argument has been, well, we're offering grid resilience. In other words, is rooftop solar a negative for the utilities or a positive? Well, as we've seen in the last couple of years, wildfires and other natural catastrophes have brought about a whole new era in which grid instability is of concern to people. And so just as the internet is strong because there is no one centralized location of computation in the internet, if you have a lot of distributed generation, including rooftop solar, people independent of the grid, this offers grid stability, grid resiliency, and is a positive for besides the fact that we're getting off of fossil fuels, which are unfortunately killing the planet. They're very nice, except for that unfortunate sidebar where so the move towards solar does have disruptive implications for the investor-owned utilities. There's no question about that. But unfortunately, some of them have taken the stance that they want to resist this movement. And in fact, there was a solar bill of rights recently in the legislature, last legislative session. And that was defeated really by Portantino, our own state senator from Claremont. And even though he claims to be an advocate for rooftop solar, why did he kill the solar bill of rights? Well, the utilities basically told the president pro tem of the Senate they didn't like the Bill of Rights, which was giving individual homeowners certain set of rights to the sun that fell on their own homes. Seems maybe counterintuitive that you would need a solar Bill of Rights, but the utilities have a different view. And so there is an enduring tug of war between what I would consider those supporting rooftop solar and the centralized utilities over the future of energy in California.
There are some fascinating policy issues around this, and Sustainable Claremont has talked about convening a dialogue with a number of speakers to get into those, probably including yourself, Peter, if we can. But
Yeah.
Anyway, there's another question in the chat, a specific question about the battery supply. The question from Richard is, does the battery supply AC or DC? That is, does the battery feed an inverter, which then feeds the house, or is there a house DC load?
Yeah, the house is alternating current, AC. It's traditional. So it inverts the energy coming from the solar panels to AC power. So that's the answer to that question.
Okay. Another question in the chat: for marginal weather such as we are having now, is your HVAC system using both AM heating and PM cooling? And if yes, how could increasing the heat storage capacity of the home improve this balance?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that right offhand. You know, basically, the electricity from the solar panels is running the HVAC system, and it seems very happy with that system. We have had no interruption in the use of cooling, heating at any time of the year. So in terms of the actual use of energy, it's transparent to us, basically, as consumers of power. And as I said earlier, we're not at 100% net zero. We're close to it, but we're still grid interconnected. And the goal is to add more storage so that we would have that resiliency within this system. Actually, the utilities do not want individual homeowners to produce more power than they consume. So there's this notion from Southern California Edison that they want you to install, or they would like to see a system that's no larger than what you actually need. Now, and you apply to them to basically install a system that would meet your needs and then a little bit extra. But they don't want a lot extra. In other words, they don't like the idea that I might use the 80% of my roof to generate more power than I consume and then sell it back to them at any price, much less donate that to Harvey Mudd College or Pomona College or, you know, a museum or any other charitable organization. So I think one of the many battles that will be fought as we evolve to a two-way grid is the idea that homeowners own the solar rights to their roof. Right now, that's not clear that they really do own that. The utilities have a lot to say about how much power you can generate and whether you can sell it back at a reasonable rate or not. And as you might imagine, these are hotly contested up in Sacramento in the legislature. And just for your information, Southern California Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and Pacific Gas and Electric, the three big publicly traded utilities, have 110 full-time lobbyists in Sacramento for 120 legislators, 80 assembly members, and 40 state senators. So their footprint is huge in Sacramento. And in opposition, there's a group called the Solar Rights Alliance. And they were the sponsors of the Solar Bill of Rights last year. And that was defeated by Anthony Portantino, our own state senator, who's a big supporter of solar, by the way, supposedly. But the utilities had their way, and rooftop solar didn't. So anyway.
There's another question in the chat that I think is kind of related to this, but less on the policy or political side, and it has to do with your interest in establishing a neighborhood microgrid. The question is, what is the status of that project? I might ask a leading question prior to that. For those that are not familiar with microgrids, maybe you could just explain what that is. Sure. And how it gets established as well.
Yeah, a microgrid is very simple. It's simply referring to a small geographic area and the homes generating, storing, interconnecting, and then sharing power as needed. So rather than just a single home meeting all of its needs, you can imagine having, for example, up here in the Padua Hills, we have 74 homes that are in the homeowners association. And one of the dreams that some of us have, many of the homes up here already have solar. The exact number, I think, is somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 to 30. So we're somewhere close to 30 to 40% of the homes already are generating power for their own use. So if we could interconnect these homes with physical wiring, which would be possible. It's not, easy, but it's also not impossible. You can imagine having storage, generation, and management going on among these homes. And there are many different people working on this core concept of microgrid. And again, we hope the state public policy pursues this because it would offer grid resiliency. It's called islanding as well. In other words, just because some other community gets hit by a wildfire doesn't mean your community has to be without power. So the idea of strengthening by islanding groups of homes, groups of businesses. So there's a lot of interesting work being done on this concept of microgrids, and it's all possible. Just for example, like the Village South project could be island. They could easily produce all their own power if there was the will to take advantage of the spectacular solar resource that we have here in Southern California. We're very lucky. We have amazing radiation flowing from the sun. The photons that hit us are stunning in their amount, intensity. And Village South, that's 17 acres, could easily produce all the power for those businesses and homes. If from the very beginning of the design process, some of us appealed to the Planning Commission, some of us appealed to Chris Veers and others intimately involved, some of us appealed to the City Council to include design standards that would allow for this. And I was disappointed to see that in the specific plan that recently was released, nothing in terms of net zero, nothing in terms of generation, storage, management. It's like that whole community in Claremont didn't exist. Even though in the beginning of the planning process for the Village South project, I remember Chris Veers saying, the community of Claremont can have anything it wants, meaning all you have to do is speak up and tell us what you want. Well, some of us spoke up loud and clear, fell on deaf ears. So we are missing a huge opportunity. This is going to be a signature project in the middle of Claremont, right? And nothing in terms of solar storage management, not even a gesture, as far as I can see. So
we have a raised hand. It looks like Freeman has his hand raised. Are you able
Yes,
to-
indeed, I do. Can you hear me?
yes.
We can hear you.
I was wondering what you thought of community choice aggregation. I have chosen community choice aggregation, which means that 100% of the electricity we get comes from renewable sources. But very few people in Claremont seem to have taken that choice. Electricity is a tad more expensive, but I think between the whole house evaporative cooler we have and community choice aggregation, our electric bill is pretty consistent, $20 to $30 a month all year round. I'll certainly be getting solar panels when Devin Hartman's factory gets going, but in the meantime, what do you think could be done to encourage more people with community choice aggregation?
Yeah, that's
Or
a
do you think it's a good?
yeah, that's a very good question, Freeman. Yeah, I like CCAs or community choice aggregation, and there's some, I think 26 of these now up and down the state of California. And these really came about as a result of the crisis 10 years ago or more now that we had in providing electricity, and the Enron scandal, in which California was a pawn and the ratepayers were abused by Enron and the utilities, and the legislature allowed CCAs to start. And this was really an affront to the utilities. So this has been part of the tension between the utilities and community nonprofit generation. So I think in terms of what could be done in Claremont to spur interest in the CCA that we have is this educational effort about what the real role of utilities has been. And my perspective is they have been disinterested in the move toward solar photovoltaics. They have been slowing it down. They've been trying to tax it. They have been forced across the line, kicking and screaming. And CCAs have been very instrumental in almost a third of power in the state of California is now generated by the 26 community choice aggregators. The utilities don't like this. This is, causes them a lot of heartache, but, life is tough, right? What can you say? And we don't always do what the utilities want. But I think distributed generation is part of, and certainly renewable energy is certainly part of the core CCA mission, and taking profit out of it are all themes that Edison, San Diego Gas and Electric, and PG&E are not interested in. And so they, this is part of the tug of war between what I return, the Solar Bill of Rights, the Solar Rights Alliance, and the utilities are in a protracted struggle, I would say. And it's not going to end anytime soon.
We have another audience member with his hand up.
Can I ask my question really quick? Just really
okay, and
quick,
then we'll go to Mike. We see you with your hand up.
Okay, yeah, sorry. I was just wondering, Peter, if we could just get back to like basics. And so for somebody who's watching tonight and they're wanting to get solar, but not sure what that first step is, now they know about Pick My Solar and that this is like an option to help them aggregate and get some of the best prices maybe in the area. Okay, so you identify 3 people and you contact them. What happens next? Like they come out and they tell you how many panels you should have. Do they show you what the bills are going to look like? And then after that, you've talked a little bit about how your Edison bill zeroes out, which is awesome. Mm-hmm. But are you now getting a bill for the panels that you've had installed? Is that a separate billing process? Is it all combined? So if you could kind of talk about that, that'd be helpful.
Sure, yeah. Yeah, basically the Pick My Solar process is they interview you over the phone. In other words, using Google Maps, they can see your home. In other words, they can see the exact square footage that you have, the angle of your roof, all of that. So over the phone, they interview you. And they also get your permission to access your bill from Southern California Edison. So they can see the actual use of power, which is very important and has to do with kilowatt hours. That's the unit of measurement of electricity, kWh. kilowatt hours. And all a kilowatt hour is 60 minutes of 1,000 watts of consumption. That's all it is. But to know how many kilowatt hours your house or you and your family, or however you define your group, consumes is kind of the basics, all right? You start with how much power you're using and then how much roof space you have available to collect. Then they ask the question, do you want to go to net zero? Do you want to produce all the power that you consume or not? Some people just want to take the 10% top, and some people, including myself, wanted to get to net zero. So I wanted kind of the maximum number of solar panels I could legally install with Edison's permission and still sell back to Edison, the excess.
Does that include switching to all electric appliances?
They're not, those are two different processes.
Okay.
The solar application and the solar approval is different from, there are incentives from Southern California Gas and others for improved efficiencies and other things, but those are two different processes.
Okay,
So
sorry to interject. Go ahead.
solar on the rooftop, yeah, solar on the rooftop. So they interview you and then they, free of charge, will design a system that meets your needs. In other words, let's say, Angela, you ask for a net zero system and you are consuming 30 kilowatt hours per day, averaged over 12 months, sometimes more, sometimes, but that's about average. And they would then design a system and show you exactly where these panels would appear on your roof. In other words, you will see a photograph of your roof from Google Maps, and they take that and they place the proposed solar panels, and then they, with your approval, they will present that challenge. They take your name and your address out of the system. In other words, who this is blind. In other words, when this goes to a solar installer, they don't know Peter Coy from Adam. So you're anonymous. They do know the roof shape, the size, the angle to the sun, all, and they know exactly how many solar panels you have requested. So there are about 30 or 40 different manufacturers and installers that Pick My Solar works with. And so they receive this, they look over it, and then they propose a system, the exact manufacturer of the solar panels, the exact inverter, the installation company, how long this would take, and importantly, the price. And they submit this to 30 or 40 different potential installers, okay? And then they get this back, all this data back, and they go through it, sift through it. They have data on how long has installer A been in business? How many complaints has the local municipality received about this company? What other information they can collect from various sources about the stability and reliability of that installation company. So they sift and winnow through this and narrow it down to 3 different bids. And then they present those bids to you and they say, we believe that these 3 represent reliable companies that have good relationships, that have been in business long enough to know what they're doing. And we recommend that you take a look at these and ask whatever questions, maybe interview these people. They do all the scut work of qualifying the bids, okay? So you don't want to underinvest, you don't want to overinvest. In other words, you want that sweet spot, knowing that you're at a market price but you have reliable equipment. Now, today, solar panels are guaranteed for 25 years. So that's kind of an industry standard, but still there are differences. One of the things in my case, every one of the 3 bids I got was within $900 of another of the 3 bids. So all of them were very close in my estimate to each other. In other words, I thought I was getting a real market quotation because they were very, very close. And in fact, 2 of them were recommending Solar World panels. At that time, those were made in the United States and in Canada. They're no longer made in the United States. Solar World is bought out by a German company. In other words, and I was very happy we chose the one they recommend. They say, we think this particular company, X, Y, or Z, whatever it was, is the best of the 3. That's our recommendation. But they don't have a horse in the race. In other words, they're not being paid by. So basically what happens is Pick My Solar gets paid to do this as a finder's fee from these different companies. But they really are a third party. They are a fair, actor. And I've had nothing but good luck with them with 3 or 4 Claremont friends of mine who have used them and they've had good results. And so that's basic. And then they come out and you can interview them, you can talk with them, and then they present you with a contract. And then it was a 3-day installation, fairly large system for them, 47 panels, 13,000 watt system. It's a fairly large system, but they did it all in 3 days and it was very easy. So I was happy. Yeah.
Great. So
Let's
thank
go to
you
Mike.
for it. Yeah, I'm going to ask him to unmute.
How about now?
Now we can hear you.
Okay. Let's say I don't care about ever hooking up to the Edison company. I just want the power. I'll use it. And if it runs out that day, I'll just use the Edison. But basically, let's say I just want to charge my electric car. I want to run an air purification system. House is pretty good with double pane windows and insulation. It could be 100 degrees outside and my house will be 80 or 20 or 25 degrees less.
Mm-hmm.
I could live without the air conditioner theoretically, but I do have one. So I don't want the Edison company at all. I don't care about ever hooking up to them because they don't give you anything anyhow, but trouble. So can I do that? Are they going to say, you can't do that unless you pay me a tax or something like that? Do I have the right to put up a solar system independent of them for my own purposes?
Yes, you do.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just, I admire you, Mike, for your, questing into the unknown, because there is, most of us are very dependent on electricity. Let's put it that way.
Well, I don't want to shut them off.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. Well,
I won't use very much of theirs is what happens.
Yeah. It's a situation where you're now in the gray area where you're saying you would like to be net zero. You want to produce all the power you use. Really.
I'll be happy if I'm net 80%.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. That's.
I mean, net down to 20. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I understand what you're saying. That's. It's a situation where, yes, you can do that successfully and you can remain interconnected to Edison.
Okay.
If you want, but not use Edison power. And you can actually.
Well, wait a minute. You mean I can't use their power at all, ever?
No,
I think what he's saying is he wouldn't notify Edison that he's got a solar system. His bill would just go mysteriously down.
Yeah. If they drops to $20 a month, I could live with that.
Yeah. They have got it wired in such a way that you can't install a solar system and expect to. I know what you're saying, that you want to have a solar system, but you don't want to sell them excess power. Is that correct?
I don't ever want to sell them anything.
Yeah,
I
no,
don't
I
want to have
understand.
anything to do with them
Yeah, I get it. I get it.
other than pay the minor bill.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yes, you're in a gray area, I would say.
Well, what's gray about it?
They want it both to say you can't do that, but they, for example, they say in essence, we don't want Mike putting in more solar panels than his consumption warrants.
I won't do that.
Yeah,
I'll put in a
okay.
2 kW system.
That's fine. I'm just saying, and the idea there
20
is,
kW.
yeah, that for fire reasons and other reasons, they have this ability to say that if you want Edison power coming to your house, you have to abide by the rules, regulations, and interconnect regulations that are in place today. So that makes it challenging, though not, if you had a completely independent system in which you had lighting and electrical system independent of Edison, you probably could get a building permit for that system. Now, right now, most people are saying, well, I want an integrated system. I don't want two parallel systems. Do you see what I'm saying?
Okay.
So potentially you could have parallel systems in which you could say, well, this light right on my desk is being supplied by my solar panels, independently of any interconnection with the grid. And you could probably get a building permit from the city of Claremont to do that. I assume you live in Claremont, is that correct?
I do.
Yeah. You could do that theoretically. Nobody does that because it's quite expensive to have two parallel systems.
Okay, then I won't do parallel. What could I?
Well, then they have you over a barrel because they have screwed it around with the city and the state and the fire marshals to say, well, this is a fire danger unless we have whole control of the system. In fact, I had to wait a month and a half before I could turn on my solar system because Edison, just took forever to approve it. So I needed fire approval, I needed building approval, I needed Edison approval. All those approvals had to be, in place.
Let me frame it another way.
Okay.
I want to just do the car. Okay. I want a solar panel to do the car. I'll
Okay.
leave the house
Yeah.
alone.
Yeah. Okay.
I want a solar panel to do the car.
Yeah.
Maybe a few other things,
Yeah.
but that's basically it. I'll leave the house alone.
Yeah. If you put a battery in, you probably would get the fire marshal to say yes. In other words, if you were charging a battery and then using the battery just for the car, you probably could get that approved. I haven't heard of anybody doing that, but it's probably within the realm of the possible.
Right.
But it's
Others, I guess there's one way to do is test it.
yeah.
Somebody needs to go to the Supreme Court or something like this.
Yeah,
It's
it's,
ridiculous. The
you know,
Earth's going to come shattering down on us.
Yeah.
And people like the utility company need to pay for the Angel Stadium and a few other 120 lobbyists and senators and crap like that. It's unbelievable.
No, you're exactly right. It's a hornet's nest of.
No, it's corruption. It's corruption. That's all it is, corruption.
Hey, Peter,
Not the
I've got a-
American way. American way isn't that way. Okay, gentlemen, thank you.
Thank you.
Peter, I've got a related question for you regarding battery storage and the Tesla or just electric cars in general. One of the things that they're talking about for the electric truck coming out next year is sort of the reverse, using your car as a battery source and kind of feeding back into the house. I'm wondering if that's possible with current electric cars, if that's something that you could speak to, or how that might change how you think about your system. Like, is that like building resilience through your vehicle might be like a really important thing moving.
Yeah, my belief is that this is coming very quickly. In other words, one of the things that the advent of the electric car, for example, Audi says by 2024, all of their models will be electric. I mean, that's just one of many signals that we're getting from the marketplace. So the advent of the electric car will change the dynamic and the demand for electricity. So it is another independent variable in a very complex dependent equation, meaning it will upset things. Now, one of the benefits in the future will be the massive battery in an electric car, which is quite large, can be used for more residential flexibility and resiliency. In other words, this will offer more options because people will have choices about using that source of stored power, which they may have charged their car when electric rates are very low, say in the middle of the night, right? Often the electric rates will be lower, so they charge then, and they could arbitrage. Arbitrage just means buying cheap, sell dear, right? Selling at a higher price. That's all arbitrage is. And it's possible that people could be in microgrid environments arbitraging to do very interesting things with that electric car. So while the electric cars today, I think the Leaf is the first one. The Nissan Leaf may have that capability. I've heard that, I don't know that. But in the future, this will come like a gangbusters. I mean, it will be huge because it's more flexibility, more choices, and this will all be integrated into the home dashboard. There'll be an electric dashboard. It'll be on your phone. It'll be on your laptop. It'll be on your, tablet, and you'll be able to say, okay, I'm not going to use the electric car tomorrow. I know I'm not going to use it, so I'll use that power. Or you could have this automatically done, so you don't have to generate or take down grid power. Now, as Mike may be independent of the grid, he'll have more and more flexibility in using that source of stored power. It's a mobile battery, obviously, it's a mobile source. But that will be coming. And matter of fact, the first that I'm aware of is actually being demonstrated in East Los Angeles at Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator, LACI. And actually, Pick My Solar is a portfolio company of Los Angeles Clean Tech Incubator. And they have this, it's called Net Zero Hub E system, which is integrating electric cars, home batteries, generation. They hope to be using Devin Hartman's solar panels as the generation source. We've been working on a deal with it. So in the future, it's not here today, or it's just beginning, I guess is the way to say it. This integration of all sources of generation, all sources of storage, all sources of management of power will be completely automatic and autonomous, just done to your specifications, or you can dial it up and dial it down as you so choose. It'll be up to the consumer. But we're not quite there yet.
Here, there's another question in the chat, sort of on a different topic, about placing solar panels on shingle roofs and whether or not it compromises or damages those, and whether it voids the shingle warranty And then the same questioner also asks if the city allows panels on roofs on the front of the house facing the street, and do panels on the front of the house decrease the property value?
That's a good question. Most solar installation companies will work with you in terms of what the local municipality rules, regulation, laws are. But in general, solar panels can be installed on any roof. And in some cases, depending on the warranty of the roof, there may be a compromise there. But to my knowledge, the mature industry, the real premier installers, have proven they do not diminish the value of the roof. In other words, they are puncturing the roof, but they seal it so well. I've had no problems whatsoever in 6 years that I've had solar with any kind of physical, diminution of the roof. That's my experience. And I believe it's the case that they're industry standards these days. So, but it's kind of a case-by-case investigation, depending on how that homeowner has structured a warranty for their roof. In the past, there have been some issues about trying to sell the house. If you lease a system, there are lease systems like SunPower has premiered a leasing system, so you don't have to come up with any upfront capital. And that sometimes compromises the ability to sell the residence. So there are issues that have to be sort of worked through, but again, I would say a case-by-case study. Yeah.
Here's another question pertaining to financing the renewable energy or the panels. Are there incentives from the state or financing to homeowners to purchase panels?
Yeah, in the past, there have been a number of different programs, including the SGIP, Self-Generation Incentive Program. It's a mouthful, but I was able to take advantage of the SGIP program because they wanted to jumpstart storage. So my solar, on my Tesla Powerwall 2 battery, I got a subsidy from the state. Anybody who signed up got a few $1,000s in a subsidy. I was one of the first in the state to say, yeah, I want a residential battery. And they wanted, but again, that sort of run out of funding. So right now, I'm not sure what the status of those incentive programs are. But again, it's something that Pick My Solar or other solar companies can help sort that out, generally speaking.
Great, thanks.
Hey, Hugh, can I ask a question real quick?
Yeah,
This
absolutely.
one's in the chat box, but it's near and dear to my heart. It's from Drew, and it says, with over 50% of homes in LA being rentals, with most passing on the utility cost of tenants, what beyond doing the right thing is incentive for landlords? Like, as a renter myself, I think about this a lot. We don't really have any control over where our energy comes from. So what can I text my landlord tomorrow to get him to adopt or to think about this as like a smart investment for his renters?
Yeah. Support community solar. Community solar is this very simple idea that all members of a community should have the right to access solar power, and whether they're renting or owning, and they shouldn't have to have it on their building. In other words, right now, you can't take advantage of the 30% federal tax investment credit unless it's on your building. In other words, for a long time, people have thought it would be a good idea to have solar fields somewhere remotely generating, and then you would own a fraction of that. And then you could have that on a long-term lease, and you could then enjoy 100% renewable energy at your apartment or rented building or rented home. We're not quite there yet. Some states are further down the track on the broad topic of community solar. It's something that Devin Hartman and others here in our local community are working on, because they envision this is a way for low and moderate income communities to have massive and immediate installation without having to go building by building by building. Right now, the systems are set up, quite frankly, for homeowners. You know, that's the idea behind the way it's structured now, but that's changing, evolving, and the utilities and other organizations are, of course, intimately involved in these debates right now. So.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, that's helpful. And I think there's a similar question here about HOAs. So if you're not a renter, but you're living in a location that has an HOA, how does one sort of navigate that and deal with solar installation?
Yeah, each HOA is different from the next. So in general, they are, as long as, you know, you're not talking about a microgrid with, you know, many different homes installing and trading power, selling, buying power, all of that. If you're just talking about an individual residential solar installation, they are generally willing to go along with that. I don't know of HOAs that just ban solar. I suppose there's some, but they probably, you know, I have heard of HOAs that have restrictions on the size of the solar systems and that sort of thing. And the look of it, some people are offended by the look of it, and that's sort of a big issue with HOAs. So in general, I don't think that's been a big problem, but each one, you know, you just have to apply or deal with your own HOA, I would say.
I'll hop in here and share a question from Bob. He would like you, Peter, if you don't mind, to talk a little bit about time of day, so time of use, and just generally,
sure.
I think what kind of role that plays in.
Yeah, that's a very good question. Basically, what's happening right now in the state of California is that during the daytime hours, we're overproducing solar energy. We actually are paying Arizona up to 4 cents a kilowatt hour to take down solar generated power. We're producing so much, which is kind of shocking. We're paying another state to take our power, because with electricity, it's very difficult to store. It's not easy to store. Now, I know I'm contradicting myself because I just said with a battery, you can store your own power. You can, but in mass, if you take the millions and millions of kilowatt hours that are being generated, we're in this ironic situation of too much solar during the peak production hours. So that's midday. That's understood as the middle of the day, most of the time in California. And then everybody comes home from work or from school, plugs in their phone, plugs in their tablet, lights up the computer, and we have this huge demand that goes up radically between about 5 o'clock and 9 o'clock. And that's called the duck-bill curve, just for sake of identifying what this is. On a graph, it goes way up like a duck's tail. So it's called the I don't know why I call it the duck-bill curve, but that's what it's called. And the state of California struggles to meet demand at the end of the day. So there is great concern about how we're going to do this among the utilities, and you may have heard the term peaker plant. And right now, the big utilities have these very specialized generation facility, often natural gas, fossil fuel, to meet that spike in demand, to meet the duck-bill curve. At the end of the day, when everybody is turning on computers and televisions and everything else, and there's one thing you can't tell a Californian. You cannot tell a Californian you can't have power. You can never say that, or you have to do your dishes at some other time besides the end of the day. No. You can't say that. And you have a right to power at any time you want it. If you want to turn on the television, you have to. And Edison, the dynamic is fascinating. For example, out in Palm Springs, where it gets screaming hot every September and August and that time frame, and everybody wants air conditioning. Well, rather than saying to people, maybe you could manage your consumption of power a little bit better, they spent $1 billion, that's with a B, for a gas-fired peaker plant right in Palm Springs. And all those costs are being borne by every one of the 9 million Southern California Edison customers. Why? Because under no circumstances can we say to anybody under any time, you can't have power. You just, now, wildfires have had something to say about that. Guess what? You don't have power because we're going to burn down your power lines, but otherwise and we pay dearly for that privilege. And that's something that's important for people to understand, that we're paying for the fact that managing power could be part of the solution, but no member of the investor-owned utilities community wants to even broach the topic, because the assumption is everybody has a right to go over and turn on the electric power, and it's supposed to be there. That's all. And part of the problem that we're facing is that we need broad understanding. And this is where Sustainable Claremont is doing a marvelous job of helping people understand how this massive system works. And we need people to understand that they're paying a very high price in environmental degradation, in climate change, in so many ways, because we have this strange habit. We're only 4 or 5% of the world's population, but we consume 30% of the electricity. And we think we have a right to it at any time, under any conditions, and you cannot tell me I can't turn on the TV.
For any purpose. Exactly.
For any purpose, at any time.
Yeah.
And to fully understand the costs of that is kind of stunning, actually. And in any event, I don't want to get...
I'll make one comment with regard to that. And I do know, because I'm a participant of it, the system where SoCal Edison will shut off your AC units during those peak. I'd rather they shut off, my dishwasher or my, you name it, but they've got a system to shut off my air conditioner during those peak demands.
That's a friendly amendment. Thank you for that.
For a small discount on my bill.
Hey, Peter, we're running out of time. I've got one other question here in the comments that I'd like to grab real quick and build on. It's a question about the inverter and how it takes the energy and transfers it from AC and DC and back again. But I'd like to build off of that question and ask you more generally about the hardware. When we're talking about solar, this whole conversation has been centered around like solar panels. In the general market, when people are looking at installing solar, is from one company to the next, is the tech and hardware that you're being offered fairly similar? Is that just like a price point difference, like anything else? Like, are there like the Ferraris of solar panels versus the whatevers? And so if you could just talk about, like, if I'm looking at the 3 places from Pick My Solar, are they all going to be pretty similar in type?
Yeah, the big break these days is between individual microinverters taking the DC power and right at the panel, inverting it to alternating current, and versus delivering all that direct current to a single inverter that's on the side of the house. So those are 2 different approaches. I would say the microinverters have been coming on in terms of popularity. There's no real, big difference between the 2 systems. They both produce alternating current for your home, which is the goal, to supply the home with usable power. So in the future, though, there are newer systems that will accentuate the use of a battery. In other words, it was very interesting that Elon Musk and Tesla, that does build solar panels, now will not sell you a solar system without a battery. In other words, Tesla Energy will only sell you a solar system for your house if you buy the battery with it. It's so important to have the battery. Now, why would Elon Musk do that? It's a fascinating question, because he sees this is such a future market that he has gone all the way, and he's the only one that does this right now. In other words, I don't know of another company that is mandating that you buy storage with the generation. But I think it's the reason is that he's convinced this will lead the market. As usual, he wants to lead the market. And that's the reason Tesla Energy now requires battery storage with solar generation. So
is that true for their solar roof tiles
yes,
as well as panels? Okay.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's kind of counterintuitive, but Elon Musk 10 years ago, electric cars have been around 100 years. What is new about electric cars? Well, Elon Musk got a $568 million Title 17 Department of Energy loan guarantee to buy the Fremont Toyota factory, and became the richest man in the world briefly. Good for Elon Musk, right? I guess. How that's amazing. What did he have that all these other people that have tried to build electric cars, but he sees the future, I think. That's my take on it. So I think once again, he's jumped ahead of everybody, in this strange way, but we'll see. Nobody knows for sure, of course. But.
So Stuart, we're coming up on the 8:30 end time. Are there any more questions in the chat that you see?
I think we've done well to go through to touch on all of them. Angela, I believe we mentioned every question in the comment. Did we miss any that I didn't see go by?
I didn't see any, but I think we got them all.
Yeah, I think we've pretty much covered. There was one question about solar powered pool pumps, and it was I guess we didn't cover that one. There's self-contained solar powered pool pumps, and the question was, is this something good? Is this a good thing to do if you have a pool?
Yeah, I have not learned a whole lot about solar systems that are just running a pool pump, though it's certainly possible that that might exist. I don't doubt that for a minute. There's no reason that anything you can imagine that runs off of electricity can be done with photons from the sun. And they're cheap. There's no cost to the photons that flow from the sun. And they're raining down on us by the billions every day, whether you like it or not. And so why shouldn't we use it, right? You know, is the idea.
Exactly.
And, yeah. So
Great.
yeah, it's a good idea.
Great. So Hugh, did you have anything else? Is it okay if I close this out?
Yeah, no, I just want to say thank you to Peter, but go ahead, Stuart.
Yeah, so I'll just echo that. Peter, thank you so much. This has been a long time in the making, and so much planning goes into this. So thank you for lending your time and your expertise. And I think every time we do something like this, it moves the needle a bit, and it's slow going, but we're hoping that, you know, we could lean into your expertise more in the future and maybe start connecting people with you as a resource
Sure.
to help people.
Yeah, I'm very glad to work with anybody that's interested. This is what I do every day, and I'm happy to share it at no cost to anyone. So glad to do it.
Great. And so after, in the coming days, we have a resource guide that we'll be distributing to all the attendees tonight and throughout the rest of the Green Home Tour. And that'll have everything that we talked about tonight. It'll provide a recap of that. And then we'll also work in the coming days and weeks with Peter to figure out a system where we can connect people to you to be a resource in the community.
Sure. Yep.
So thank you all so much again for attending tonight, and we'll see you all next Monday as we tour another Claremont home.
Bye-bye, everybody.
All right,
Thanks,
bye-bye.
everyone.
Thank you, everyone. Take
Great
care.
night, everybody. Take care.